What has America become? The United States of reparations? Because now we're seeing immigrants and foreign groups stepping up, demanding checks from the United States government. Immigrants here in America, the Somali community, even entire countries, thousands of miles away on completely different land masses. And even Iran, a country that seems to have updated its 1979 playbook from using Black Americans as political leverage during the hostage crisis to navigating modern conflict with the help of social media to build support and shape perception is now back in the conversation. Same playbook, different decade. Package it as solidarity, push it through the algorithm, and somehow it circles back to reparations. Why has everyone suddenly decided they have a claim? Because when you look closer, these claims don't even align. Different groups, different reasons, no unity, just a public scramble for a payout. And here's the irony. Some of those same voices that can't agree on anything somehow come together real quick to shut down reparations for Black Americans. The same way the United States shut it down when Ghana brought it to the United Nations.
The United States also does not recognize a legal right to reparations for historical wrongs that were not illegal under international law at the time they occurred.
Now, that response from America, that wording is something Black Americans should definitely be paying attention to. But that's a different conversation. Here's how you actually present a case against the United States, collectively from the Black American experience. Before anybody else learned the word reparations, Black Americans were already living the receipts. And while countries like Ghana are now calling slavery a crime against humanity, let's be clear about how that system even started. The transatlantic slave trade didn't just happen. People were captured, sold, traded through organized systems and willing participants. This was business, and if you were part of that pipeline at any level, you weren't just a bystander. You were part of the operation, an accomplice. Looking at you, Ghana. And now, the same conversation comes back around. Some of those voices show up, not to account for that history, but to collect from it. So if reparations is the conversation, then we start with formerly enslaved Black Americans. Because to us, this isn't a handout, this is a case. So again, what exactly is your claim? Let's not delay this any further. Let's move into the reading of the charges. Charge 1, mass kidnapping and human trafficking. Millions of Africans were kidnapped and sold, not immigrated, not relocated, kidnapped from their homes and sold into a system that treated them like livestock, shackled, branded, transported across the Atlantic in floating prisons. Because once enslaved Africans passed through what's known as the door of no return and touched foot on American soil, that's when the real system began. That's when the exploitation became permanent. That's when the unpaid labor, the torture, the control became law, because everything before that was capture. Everything after that was a business, packed so tightly they couldn't move, forced to lie in their own waste, disease spreading faster than breath itself. And many didn't even make it past the Middle Passage, because when enslaved Africans got sick or when profits were threatened, they were thrown overboard, alive. Not out of mercy, but for insurance claims. Human beings were labeled as cargo, and when that cargo was lost at sea, ship owners got paid. So people were killed to protect profit margins, kidnapped, sold, insured, disposed of, and all of it legal. Charge 2, genocide and cultural erasure. Names erased, languages banned, religion stripped, families destroyed on purpose.
I'm going to read, as an example, an historical example. This is American history. from a narrative produced many years ago by WPA. Some of you in the audience will know what that means. Anyone who doesn't, ask your nearest neighbor with hair as gray as mine. This excerpt is from a volume, Lay My Burden Down, which is the verbatim record of interviews with the last of the slaves. On the screen you will see the pictures in the volume of those who were interviewed. I will read only a small segment, just to give you a sense of the drama, the feeling and content which lies in this kind of historical material, which is the content we teach. This one is called, She Never Got to Keep Her Babies. My mother told me that Master owned a woman who was the mother of several children, and when her babies would get about a year or two of age, he'd sell them, and it would break her heart. She never got to keep them. When her fourth baby was born and was about 2 months old, she just studied all the time about how she would have to give it up, and one day she said, I just decided I'm not going to let old Master sell this baby. He just ain't going to do it. She got up and give it something out of a bottle, and pretty soon it was dead. Of course, didn't nobody telling her, or he'd have beat her nearly to death.
People weren't just enslaved, they were unmade. African identities were replaced with whatever was easiest to control. Last names weren't inherited, they were assigned.
Second segment, titled, I Just Said It to the Wrong Person. One time some Yankee soldiers stopped and started talking to me. They asked me what my name was. I say Liza, and they say, Liza who? I thought a minute and I shook my head. Just Liza, I ain't got no other name. He say, who live up yonder in that big house? I say, Mr. John Mixon. He say, you are Liza Mixon. He say, do anybody ever call you nigger? And I say, yes, sir. He say, next time anybody call you nigger, you tell him you is a Negro, and your name is Miss Liza Mixon. The more I thought of that, the more I liked it, and I made up my mind to do just what he told me to. My job was minding the calves back while the cows was being milked. One evening I was minding the calves, and old Master came along. He say, what you doing, nigger? I say, real pert-like, I ain't no nigger. I's a Negro, and I'm Miss Liza Mixon. Old Master sure was surprised, and he picks up a switch and starts at me. Law, but I was scared. I had never had no whipping, so I run as fast as I can to Grandma Gracie. I hid behind her, and she say, what's the matter with you, child? And I say, Master John going to whip me. And she say, what you done? And I say, nothing. She say, you know better. And about that time, Master John got there. He say, Gracie, that little nigger sassed me. She say, Lawsy, child, what does ail you? I told him what the Yankee soldier told me to say. And Grandma Gracie took my dress and lifted over my head and pinched my hands and sides, and Lawsy, how she whipped me. And I dasn't holler loud either. I just said that to the wrong person.
Histories weren't preserved, they were erased. Connections to land and ancestry cut off permanently. So when people ask, where are you from? The real answer is, that was taken too. And when you erase a people across generations, that's genocide with paperwork. Charge 3, systemic sexual violence and forced reproduction. Women were raped to produce more slaves. Children born into ownership. Birth became profit. Bodies became production lines. But it didn't stop there. Men were violated too. Sexually abused, humiliated, and broken on purpose. Stripped of their dignity, often in front of their families. Wives forced to watch, children forced to witness. Not for profit, but for control. To destroy the man, to break the protector, to send a message that no one was safe, that power had no limits, and that resistance would cost you everything. This wasn't random cruelty, this was calculated domination. Break the body, break the spirit, and you control the population. That wasn't chaos, that was policy. This wasn't hidden, this was public, intentional. Used to humiliate, used to control, used to break entire families at once. Charge 4, extreme atrocities. Black people were mutilated, tortured, and in some cases, skinned. Their skin turned into furniture, accessories, trophies, body parts taken as souvenirs, teeth collected, bones displayed. Violence wasn't hidden, It was showcased, used as a warning, used as entertainment, and in documented cases, some were even eaten. This wasn't just punishment, this was spectacle, this was domination on display. This wasn't just violence, this was dehumanization at its absolute limit. Charge 5, psychological warfare. Break the body, then control the mind. Separate families, reward submission, punish intelligence, turn fear into survival, and pass it down, generation after generation. This wasn't accidental trauma. This was engineered behavior, designed to outlive slavery itself. Because slavery didn't end, it evolved.
Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God is gonna trouble, trouble the water.
Enter Jim Crow laws. Charge 6, segregation, disenfranchisement, racial terror. Black Americans were free, but freedom came with limits. Limited access to land, limited access to wealth, limited protection under the law, and when black communities began to build, they were often met with destruction. Towns flooded, neighborhoods burned, bombed, and erased. Prosperity was seen as a threat, progress was punished, and the system made sure if you built something, it could be taken from you. Freedom without security is not freedom. It's control with a different name. When black Americans fought back during the civil rights movement, Charge 7, they were met with police dogs, fire hoses, arrests, and assassinations. Leaders were targeted, movements were infiltrated, communities were surveilled, even peaceful protest was treated like a threat to national order because equality was never meant to be given freely. It had to be demanded, and even then, it came with resistance. Charge 8, modern targeting through the crack epidemic. In the 1980s, the crack epidemic hit black communities with devastating force. Entire neighborhoods were reshaped almost overnight. Addiction increased, families were disrupted, and communities had to adapt under intense pressure. At the same time, enforcement and policy responses led to a sharp rise in incarceration, especially in black communities. What began as a public health crisis became deeply tied to the criminal justice system, and the effects didn't stop there. Generations grew up in the aftermath with limited access to resources, stability, and opportunity. Communities were forced to rebuild while carrying the weight of that era forward, and the impact is still being felt today. Final charge, broken promises and economic theft, centuries of unpaid labor, and after emancipation, there was a promise, 40 acres and a mule, a chance to rebuild, a chance to start over, and that promise was taken back, denied, reversed. So not only was the labor stolen, the opportunity to recover was stolen too. So when the world starts talking about reparations, and countries like Ghana bring the issue to the United Nations, they're not creating the conversation, they're joining it, because this case has been open for centuries, and the charges are still being added. Defamation, distortion, minimization, pain and suffering. You don't get to inherit the benefits, step away from the past, and then return asking for repayment on a 500-year-old ledger. That's not how this works. Historical evidence is what validates a claim. So again, what are y'all claims actually about?